recording now,
Okay.
but yeah, just so everybody knows the way this is going to be set up is that brought Jordan in here because I feel like he's a true success story in the sense that he was able to start his business and grow his business to the point where it's sustaining him. He was able to make a living out of it, and success for everybody is different. So success for me might mean different from success from somebody else. For me, it's all about you know, can I do what I love to do, make enough money doing it, and spend the amount of time that I want to spend with my family without killing myself, to have that lifestyle. And that's really like my vision of success. So everybody's is different there. But Jordan, he's been around since the beginning here. We'll talk about kind of his origin story, right? On how he came to be, like why he started his business, and it's kind of a not unique situation, but I enjoy the story itself. And we'll talk about the business itself, kind of what's happened over the last year. It's been just over a year now, Jordan, since you've been on the platform here.
Yeah.
So, you know, love to talk more about the what's going on in the business, what's happened with you, your military background, and then we'll just kind of open it up to some things you learned along the way, and some things that you might want to share with people, and then we're going to open it up to everybody else. So then I'll unmute everybody else. I'll open up everybody's camera, and then everybody feel free to jump into the conversation here, and ask any questions for Jordan or myself or Al or anybody here. So yeah, so Jordan, just to get going here, tell us quick just your military background.
Yeah. So I'm a Marine. I did 10 years, 4 active and 6 reserve. Um, Good old East Coast Marine. I did communications in there, so I did fiber optic splicing. We would go into help units set up communications. So we were the guys setting up your phones, your internet, encrypting the data, stuff like that. I enjoyed my military time. It was probably the best thing for me. I wasn't really a big school person when I was a kid, and when I seen the Marine Corps recruiter, I was like, I think that seems pretty fun. So yeah, it's kind of just
What
how
was
I
it?
got.
Was it everything you sold it to be?
Yeah, kinda. You know how it is. I used to see the commercials of the Marine, fighting dragons and jumping out of planes, and I was like, that seems cool. And I realized, like, oh, you don't have to do all that. And I was like, oh, all right, that's not bad. So, I ended up getting a E5, which is a sergeant in the Marine Corps before I exited out. I enjoyed my time on active, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time on reserve, meeting everybody, doing that too. Yeah, my military time. It was so. I've been out now since from 2018. My last day in was February 14th, 2018. We got back from a deployment in Bahrain, and I just wanted to spend more time with my family. Reservists deploy a lot, and I just wanted to spend more time with my kids. So I was like, it's time for me to,
Yeah.
go into the civilian world.
Yeah. And were you able to use any of the skills or any of the benefits on the VA side of the house, on the civilian side?
Yeah, so I used my GI Bill in order to get my associate's degree. And then I kind of took a lot of time off, and now I'm currently using VRNE to get my bachelor's degree. So I am a year and a half away from my bachelor's, and I'll be moving into my master's once I'm done with that. So I got to use that as well.
There you go. Nice. Yeah, very similar path with myself too. So cool. So yeah, so kind of interesting story as far as like how you got into business. So, and from what I recall here, without spoiling too much, it's, you were basically, your company had some stuff go on and your back was really against the wall. So the business was started out of necessity, really, right?
Yeah. So when I got out the military, I went in utility locating, and I worked for, a bunch of companies doing that. And then the last 2 companies that I worked for, one company where I learned how to do GPR in, I worked for the gentleman for a long time, about a year and a half, every day doing scanning in and out of the city. And sadly, like 10 days before Christmas, he let me go. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But I'm the type that I'm like, all right, whatever. One door closes, another one will open. I ended up getting another job with a big construction company out here in Boston. And it was great. I was doing utility scanning over there. I was training people. It was a great experience. I loved the company, but it just so happened that they ended up losing their contract with EverSource, and they had to cut almost 95% of all their employees. So now I remember sitting at home and thinking, like, man, like this is the second time this has happened to me over the past, 2 years, where I was, working at a company hard and it didn't work out. And my wife pretty much told me, like, just do it yourself. And I remember just sitting at home thinking, like, what do you mean? I don't even know first thing about business. Um, and I just started reading into it and looking at books and trying to figure out if it was even possible. Luckily, I was able to get in contact with you, David. You were one of the first people that were, I kind of look for as like a mentorship, because in my family, nobody has their own business. And as much as I enjoy reading, I'm the type where I need to do it in order to understand it. I could read books all day; it doesn't matter. Um, and I also like talking to people who have done it to get insight. But yeah, that's kind of how I started and why I wanted to. It was just, you know, being let go and then a company falling apart. And I was like, I don't ever want to be in that position again. I want to be in charge of everything. If business doesn't do good, I want it to be my fault, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
and that's a good point because that's a lot of fear that most people have. They figure the W-2 job working for somebody else is security, right? And I don't physically believe that myself because I've seen it happen in situations like yourself, other things, stuff happens and nothing is secured that I've ever seen. So if I'm going to take a risk, I might as well have more control over the outcome. Yeah, so I totally believe that. And just to confirm with everybody here that might not know what GPR is, why don't you tell them like what you actually do?
Yeah, so I do GPR concrete scanning. What that is imagine I'm X-raying the ground, for lack of a better like term. So when they have concrete slabs inside of buildings, inside of walls and ceilings, there's rebar. Sometimes there's conduits inside of it. Could be gas lines, water lines. With my equipment, I'm able to see those lines. So when companies have to go in and cut, core, drill, or chip, I'm able to detect those lines so they don't hit them, because you can't see through concrete, and they don't want to start cutting concrete and break something. So I'm able to pretty much give them a scan of everything they can't see so they can work safely. Yeah,
So, this is basically a solution, a low cost solution for someone to
yeah,
prevent a much larger potential problem if they don't have it done, right?
absolutely. Because usually damages, to just give people like, if you hit like an electrical line in a building, you stop operations in that building, and then you also, have to pay for another company to come in and fix the electricity. So when you call me, companies are investing in safety when they're calling me. They don't want to pay that big $50,000, damage that they cause. They just want to pay me what I charge so I can go in and fix the issue before that ever happens. I'm safety, you
Yeah.
know.
So take us back. So, with this second company, you thought again you were secured. They were a large company, had a large contract, basically almost overnight, it seems on your side anyway. Who knows what happened on the back end, but on your side, basically you're laid off, you're kind of stuck, and you're like, well, now what? I have a skill, but how do I start a business from it? So, and this is a part that I love because you just said, screw it, what do I get to lose, right? And I'm just going to
Yeah,
do it. If I can find a way to get this equipment, which the equipment is what around like 20 grand to get started, like for that
yeah,
that
yeah. Just
kitchen.
just about, just about. It was 16.5
Yep.
for the equipment. I was lucky, I have a good friend, my friend Caddy. So I didn't have to go through a bank. I remember sitting on the phone with him and talking to him about it, and he's a vet as well. And luckily, he was just like, how much do you need to start your business? Because I was panicking about the bank and trying to get a loan and how I was going to pay it back, because I didn't have business with this idea. I need the equipment before I can do the business. And this, because this is such a niche kind of work. It's not like I can go on Craigslist and see used pieces of equipment. When people buy this equipment, they tend to keep it and hoard it and try to keep it close to themselves because it's not, widely used. But I remember him just telling me like, hey, I'll give you the money. And I remember sitting back and kind of like in my head looking for an out because like I was afraid to start the business. I didn't want to go in and invest all this money and then not be able to be successful. That was a big thing that held me back was the spirit first. But he sent me the money. I bought the equipment and I started just texting every person that I ever worked with in my phone. I remember messaging over like, I'm not even lying, probably about 500 people. I think I told you, David, too. Like I was emailing people, calling people, texting people, and it wasn't until about 2 months where I got my first client. I remember picking up the phone and kind of like after setting up the date and everything, and it was with the town of Mansfield. I did their water treatment facility. I remember hanging up the phone. I remember jumping for joy and screaming in my living room as like the happiest moment. Like it's in like the top 10 happiest moments of my life again, that first job.
That's awesome.
That's kind of like, how it happened.
Yeah, and I love the fact that again, this is a lesson for everybody. Just talk to everybody because you never know who that one person is that has the connection or has the resources to help you out. So just tell everybody what you do all the time, and you'll see that more opportunities will just start coming your way. It's people call it luck. It's not luck. It's persistence.
Yes. One thing that I noticed too is in a lot of the books I read, they don't really tell you, like especially for my business, it's very niche. It's very they don't tell you like you're gonna get rejected. And I remember you told me something and it stuck with me, and it was don't count the yeses, count the nos. Don't leave until you get 50 no's in a day. And I remember before you told me that, I get so like angry. I'm like, why don't they want to work with me? Like, you need me. And then I had to think like, they don't know me. But when you put that in my head, count the no's. I remember going out and being like, today I'm gonna get 25 no's before I go home. If they say, okay, well think about it, that doesn't count. I want people to tell me no. And I went out with that in my mind, and my whole perspective changed. I could feel myself, walking in more confident, other than like being like, kind of down because the last person told me no. I'd be like, I got one no out the way, 19 more, let's keep going. And when I changed my mentality is when like it started working and all that work that I put in. Now I'm getting calls to go do jobs. I mean, 4 times a month, and my goal for this year was only 2 times a month, and I'm, exceeding my goal. And it's all that work that I put in, going, shaking hands, talking to people, sending emails constantly. And if people said no, I just kept it moving, on to the next one. I had a person tell me no and then call me back, and I have a job with them next month. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are just not now, right? Because in any industry, I think it's pretty proven that there's only about 3% of the market that's ready to buy. So if you go out there and talk to 100 companies, even companies that fit right within your wheelhouse that do need your service, you might get 3 yeses, right? And that's if you win the market that's ready to buy right now. So that's why it's so important to just keep that pipeline going. And it's that mindset, right, Jordan? It was like, what? I'm not scared to get a no now. I don't need everyone to be a yes. I know I have to get through so many no's before I get a yes. So, let's at least give myself credit for trying. Like, don't focus on the crap that you didn't get done. Reward yourself for the stuff that you did get done. And there's nothing wrong with a no. I think that I wish I knew the name of the book off the top of my head. I've read it a few times. I think it's called Start With No. It's like a mindset and a negotiation thing. And it's talking about, sales and approaching people and just trying to get people to start with no and then build them to the yes. But yeah, so you were on this platform. It was interesting because you basically took us live. I remember like I'm going out my first day and I'm knocking on doors. Hey, I built a flyer. What do you guys think? And then you went through it, and I remember it was a couple weeks in, and you're like, man, this is tough. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm like, but it's only been 2 weeks, man. You just started. It's gonna take time to get traction. Just stick with it, and all of it was right here on the platform. It was really cool. So
Yeah.
how have you found the platform to either support you or assist you or just hold yourself accountable? Like what have you used it for yourself?
In the beginning, I know like because I knew like, hey, everybody in here is in the same boat as me. So it's not like anybody in here can judge me. You know what I mean? I was like, everyone in here is a new business owner, so let me just put up some stuff like what I'm going through, and people would drop, helpful things or motivation, and that helps because, starting the business off was scary. Even though my friend gave me that money and he was like, "Don't worry about it." He's like, you pay me back whenever you got it. But for me, I'm like, my friend just gave me all this money. I want to make sure I'm successful so I can pay him back, you know? So I just wanted to use it as like, you know, a place to vent to other business owners. Or I was like, man, if I start putting this stuff down, maybe someone will see this and be like, oh, look, this guy posted, he didn't get anything. And then a month later, you're like, yeah, he just got his first job. Like it isn't easy. You have to put work in. You're the guy when you're doing this. And it's also motivation to me because I go back and I look at those posts. When I'm like, some days even now, I'll go out and I'll get a bunch of no's, and I remember I'll sit and I'll think and I'll go back and I'll look at my post and I'll be like, I remember when I wrote that. Like, it's like motivation for me because like, look where you were last year, look where you are this year. You know, you're in such a better place now. And just the people who did post under the thing, motivation, like it helped. It helped, even though it's just a tap a like or I said thank you, like that meant a lot to me when I'm in my business because, like I said, there's no business owners around me. I'm it, so it's not like I'm not really like a savvy Facebook user, like to go into like a business group. I had you guys, and I also had Blunt Force Business as well with Brian. It was just used two groups were the only ones I had to vent to, and I think too, starting up, you want to talk to people. You want to have people in your corner. David, I've called you plenty of times. Like, hey, can we get on the phone and talk about this now? Like, I need to know what's going on. There's only, so much I can read before I need to hear someone who's actually done it be like, I see where you're coming from. Have you thought about it this way? If you're starting a business, I think everyone needs to have like a group like this. Just come out and talk. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the fact that fear didn't hold you back. I know you were in kind of unique situation. You're like, well, I only have so many options, right? So, but again, I remember after you got that first client there, and then you were excited, you called me, and then you're like, I don't even know how to invoice them. So, you're like the exact opposite of what most companies do. Most entrepreneurs, especially the perfectionists, they sit there and it's, paralysis by analysis, and they plan their business for 2 years until it's perfect. And you just went for it, and you're like, I'll figure it out as I go. Screw it. Right? Like literally.
I remember that. Yeah, because it's funny. So, like I said, I was reading all these books, but I weren't reading books where like, okay, make sure you have invoice. Do you have a contract for them to sign? I didn't think about all that. I remember getting the job, booking it, and going, oh wait, there's so much more I have to do. Like I look back now and I wouldn't want to learn any other way. Because it put me on the spot. Like I had to make something happen, and I work good under pressure. But yeah, I remember that because I never thought about it. Like, how am I going to get paid? I didn't know. Like, do you just give me money? Cash at me. Give me. I didn't know how I was supposed to do it, and I didn't know how to do it in my field because I looked at some. When I started doing research, there's so many different ways you can take an invoice. But because I'm in the construction field, I have to do construction invoice, which is totally different. I mean, I remember after I submitted it, I remember calling the guy the next day and being like, hey, where's my money? And he's like, oh, you 30 days in the construction world, you got to wait. And I'm like, I have to wait for my money? Like, it was just this whole learning process about every step along the way. Every single step was, okay, now I have to do it. Now I have to implement it. It was rushed. It went from, me taking the summer off with, my daughter after the construction, laid me off to right into the business. I like I said, I was talking on the phone with talking with my wife and then talking on the phone with my buddy. And he was like, I'll give you the money. Do it. Just going up and buying it. It all happened so fast and so quick. I didn't really have a real planning phase. I had an idea phase because I already knew how to do the job. And I thought that's what 99% of business was, doing the job. And I'm here to tell you guys that being good at the job or doing the job is like 1%. You got to be a really good secretary. You got to be real good with paperwork. David, I remember talking to you about taxes. You got to learn how to do taxes. You got to learn what to tell them to write off and what not to write off. There's so much more to business. And even now, I'm a year and a half in, and I'm still learning. Every day I'm trying to learn something else to make my business better. Learning about certain keywords in my website. Learning. I started having people that I work with, if they enjoyed the work, to give me like a recommendation, like write me a recommendation. How was it working with me? That took a year for me to do. In the beginning, I remember going out and just talking to people and leaving. And I remember, David, you told me, ask them for a business card, get their information. So even if they say no, you can contact them later and you have that business. That helped. There's so many things that when you're building your business, you're going to learn over time that, just don't get discouraged. Just keep going. They don't know that you don't know what you're doing when you walk in. None of the hundreds of places I went to didn't know I didn't know how to write an invoice
Right.
before I started working with them, So
Yeah. And the other, I think, remember the conversation we had, to me, that was kind of critical for you, was to get out of the mindset of an employee and what your value is as an employee versus what your business proposition and the value is as a business to the company too. And that mindset switch of what you should be charging and can be charging as well. So I just want to hear your take on, what that was like and how drastically wrong you were. Not to put you on the spot, but
no, because I hope that no other business owner makes the mistake I did. When I started the business, I remember thinking about my pricing, and I was thinking about what my boss was paying me hourly and a little more than that to go and do this job. I wasn't thinking about like what he was charging them, so I had to come to that realization that I need to ask what I'm worth and not be afraid to ask for it. Like it was kind of like how dare I ask this company to pay me to do this job? It was like, oh, pay me like an employee. No. I'm worth more than that. My skill set is worth more than that. And I remember just throwing my price out there and them going, okay. And I remember a bunch of them said so quick, and I was like, maybe my price isn't right. And I did a little more research, a little more tweaking, and I found a price that fits me well, makes me competitive, and I just started asking for it. And then when I travel further, I ask for more because I have to travel for the day. Don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth. In the construction field, for me, these are multi-million-dollar projects. I'm a couple $1,000s. I'm a drop in a bucket. They don't even think about me. I'm in a safety budget. They have to use me. But for you guys out there, when you're starting your business, don't shortchange yourself. Do some research, see what your competitors are doing. If you believe your product's better than what they're doing, charge what they're charging or charge more. You have to bet on yourself when you do this. Like I said, I had a little bit of I don't want to charge this. And now I'm like, this is my price, take it or leave it. I just wrapped up a big job. I can't say where, due to NDA, but we just signed the most money I've ever seen in a month in my life. And I asked for the price. They said, this is how many days we want. We negotiated a little more, and boom, I got what I wanted. No sweat. Walked out of the room, shook hands. Great. I got what I wanted. They're getting what they want. So just don't shortchange yourself when you're starting your business. That's something very, very important that I think everybody needs to know,
Well, it's know how you fit, right? It's know your worth. And to them, it's more of an insurance policy, right? If they don't do this and they screw up and do something big, like then they could potentially get sued. Like the catastrophic negative things for your, specific thing, that they could spend a couple grand now to save themselves literally hundreds of thousands of dollars later. It's a no-brainer, right? And think about the one time when I remember somebody called you and it was way out of town, like long travel, like either down the coast or coast to coast or something like that. And you're like, I'm just going to give them some stupid number, and they're going to say no, right? And then what happened with that?
They're saying yes. They said yes, and I just remember sitting, and I looked at my wife, and she was like, "What are they saying?" I was just like, "They said yes," and I was just like, "I can't believe that." But now I know. The way it works with me is some places, I'll give you an example. Logan Airport or TF Green, they will not allow anybody to cut or core into their slab unless it's scanned first. So when I'm giving them my price, I know that, number one, they want me there immediately. If I don't get there, they still have to pay their workers all the money to be there, sitting on site, and that's going to cost them a lot more than what it is for me to come out. It's not that I'm taking advantage of them, it's that I know my worth. You need me to get this job done. You need me to be there and clear this area so you can work effectively. So that means my value is now higher. But yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, it was at the very tip top of Maine. And I remember driving out there, doing the job, and driving home, and just thinking like, wow, that just happened. Like, I just made all that money in one day. And again, I was so happy because I think that was like my fourth or fifth job. And it just blew my mind because I never have been in a position to tell people like, this is what I want for you to come do this job. It's usually just, hourly wage. I've always worked in construction doing, cable locating. I did, GPR, utility and the road locating. And now I can dictate the price. It's an experience.
Yeah. So how many days a month do you think you actually work on your business? And this includes, the admin side, invoicing, dealing with, marketing stuff, doing sales, and then the actual jobs you perform.
I remember in the beginning, for the first 3 months, I was working Monday through Saturday on my laptop, looking at stuff, and it was obsessive to the point where I'd wake up at 6 and I wouldn't close my laptop till 6. And I realized like that's a little excessive. Now with things the way things are flowing, I work Monday, Wednesday, Friday if I'm not doing a job. So 3 days a week on at-home stuff. So adjusting the way my invoice looks, reaching out to people, emails, and I use those other, 4 days off during the week for myself, to, take care of myself, spend time with my family. Because I know in those 3 days, I can get all my administrations done, all my marketing done, all my reaching out done. And one thing that I learned is you don't call construction people on Friday. They don't want to hear it. They want to go home. So Friday is automatically cut off. Saturdays and Sundays, they don't work, Mm-hmm. So that's why I always leave. Even Mondays are kind of shaky. So sometimes I'll do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but only 3 days, no more. I need time for myself now because I'm doing a lot more than a regular 9 to 5. There's a lot more like pressure on me now. I have to sign these contracts. I get contract and I have to read them. It's not like, before I just go to the job. No, I have to sit and I have to read these contracts to ensure that I'm protected when I go to the site and that they understand what terms and conditions I want. That's something I've been getting into now is just contracts. Make sure I'm reading the contract, understanding the insurance on the job site. Just things like that. So 3 days. 3 days realistically. The other 4 are spent to, if work does come up, so be it. I do work. So
right. So do you think that, I mean, and I, that's actually a good point because, I think that a lot of people get into entrepreneurship and they say, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to have a perfect work-life balance. But when you're starting out and you're hustling, it's a grind at first, right? It takes time to get there. Now you got there pretty quickly because your margins, for what you provide for a service is key. But, how do you, look at the value of your life now, like, your work-life balance now after a year of doing it versus like having to grind every day, every week, working for somebody else?
I'll tell you, when I was doing construction, I was driving from here out to Quincy, Lowell, Boston, Wareham, Worcester, and I live in New Bedford. I would drive to all these places to go do work and come home every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes even Saturdays, all the time on the road, working, 10-hour days and then having to make those long drives home. And now, if I got to make a 3-hour drive, there up to the top of Maine and back, it's no problem. It's no problem because I'm working for me now. I would never go back to a 9 to 5 or work for someone again. I even told myself like earlier on, like if this doesn't work, now that I have the taste for entrepreneurship, I'm just going to start another business. I'm just going to find another way to make it happen. I can't work for someone else again. Knowing what I know now and how much value, how much money I make, how much more time I have for my family doing this. I only have to work one day a month to make what I was making on my 9 to 5. You know, and I'm doing four jobs a month now. And there's a certain pride into it now too. Like when I'm talking to people and we're talking and people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I have my own company. And instantly, oh, how'd you do it? What do you do? Like people want to learn, and it's exciting for me, and it's exciting to tell people like I couldn't do it. For those of you who are starting up your businesses, once it gets rolling, you're gonna be like, never again will I work for somebody. Never again. It's like entrepreneurship's like a drug. That's the only way I know how to put it. I'm thinking like, what am I going to do next? What's the next thing that I want to stick my hands into?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a recent conversation that we had here where, you just wanted to follow up. And I was like, yeah, always happy to follow up. Like, I love talking to
Yeah.
you. And honestly, like the phone call that you called me for, was the stuff that it's the reason why I do all this. It's the reason why I do what I do, which it's why I love consulting. If I can help a small business owner, not make the mistakes that I made early on, and I made a lot of mistakes in my first 4 businesses. If I can at least teach people to make those mistakes smaller so you can rebound in time, or to accelerate your growth instead of taking 3 to 5 years to get to a point, if you can get there in 1 to 2 so your work-life balance is a little better, like that's why I do this. Like that's what makes me feel good. So I loved your when you called me, and I don't want to put too much out there, but
Yeah.
essentially it was like I got a new problem now. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what's that? Oh,
Yeah.
my dog is barking like crazy.
Yeah. It's the best problem I think I've ever had in my life. It stressed me out, but for a good reason. I was like, I never expected to be where I am today. I didn't think, that, it would happen this quick, it happened this fast, or I'd be as comfortable. I'm comfortable. I'm in a position now where, like I said, I only have to work really 3 days, and that work is I could take my laptop to the park. You know, I was sitting out with my daughter yesterday. We were at a park, and I was just tapping away on my laptop, getting some stuff done. You know, it's good to be in. Um, yeah.
All right, so to close it out here, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A to everybody here. But is there any advice that you would give people starting out in a business in any industry, obviously? And then I also want to see like how people can get in touch with you. But we'll wrap up with that. So I guess go back to the question of what advice, if any, would you give somebody starting out that's thinking about making that transition from the W-2 job to at least starting a side hustle, or maybe going all in business.
I think you have to be mentally tough to do it. For me, my job's not a physical job. But when I was starting this business, the mental got to me a lot. It was always a lot of the times in my head for the first probably 7 months was, what if this don't work? What if this don't work? What if this don't work? And I thought about that for a long time. And finally I was like, what's the point of thinking like that? I'm doing it now. I'm giving it 110%, kind of that positive reinforcement on myself. Like, no, you're going to do it. You don't have a choice. You invested a lot of time into this, make it happen. So when you're doing your business, just make sure you're committed. You got to give it 110. You can't half step it when you're the boss. No, because think about, when you work for someone else, if your boss was giving you 50%, you'd be like, I hate this place. I don't want to work here. So remember that when you're doing your business, you're the boss. You got to give you 110%, and it's going to happen. You just got to put the effort in. Like I said, I contacted about 500 people before I even got my first job. I did not get my first job until 4 months in. 4 months, no work, no callbacks, getting told no every day. Every day. I was out on the road going to businesses every day and was getting told no every day until I got my first call. And I kept going and I kept going and I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. So just be mentally strong. Don't be afraid to start your business. Don't be afraid. Yeah, it's step by step.
How close were you to quitting?
Ooh, I will tell you, if it wasn't for my wife, at month 2, I was thinking about selling the equipment and giving it back. I was like, nothing's happening. Why is no one telling me yes? I'm like, I've worked for these companies before. I'm texting people that I know that I've done work for, and they're not texting me back. This is horrible. Maybe it's not so easy. Maybe I can't do this. And my wife was like, no, keep going. No, keep going. The seeds you're putting today are tomorrow. So I have to give 100% credit to my wife for being like, no, you're not stopping. You're gonna get a job. You're gonna make this happen. So, look, I had a good support system because I let the mental get to me in the beginning, and I shouldn't have. Don't let it get to you, because like I said, if I would have quit, Mansfield would have called me because he was like, oh, I saw your stuff a couple months ago, but we wasn't even starting the work. So there was no reason for me to call you, because in my business, the people I talk to today are already on the job. They're doing stuff. They're not going to call me to the next job, which is a year later. That's why all the work I put in last year is all coming to fruition. They're like, oh yeah, I got your email last year. I put your number in the cabinet. I was just waiting until we started this job. I've heard that so many times. And I'm like, oh wow, it all mattered. Everything that I did mattered. Even the people who said, oh yeah, I'll just take your stuff, and they threw it on the thing. Some of them looked at it, so just be persistent. Be persistent, and make sure that you have a good support group around you.
Yeah. I mean, I've found that true just in life. I think it's one of those rules in life where, I think your biggest opportunity is just past your furthest hurdle. Like right when you're hitting the wall, right when you're ready to give up. If you're just persistent and you get through that, you get rewarded. It always seems like it's right on the other side of despair. Like right when life's the hardest is when life's about to get the best.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
no, that's an awesome thing, because I mean, again, I think we did have a conversation once where you're like, I think I'm ready to cash it in. Like it's not
Yeah,
going. I'm like, buddy, just stick with it. You just started. You just like it's so early. Just keep going. Give yourself a chance, right? Which also kind of makes me think, because a lot of people. And by the way, Tim, I opened up your camera so you can turn that on. I'll open up the mic here in a sec. And what was my train of thought here? So, damn it, we were talking what? Not give up.
Yep.
I lost
and having good people around you.
Yeah, so just be persistent. I think was a great message to give people here, because it just takes time, and it's easy to give up. It's easy to look at the negative, but I know where I was going to go with this. So a lot of people, like, as they're building their business plans, as they're trying to figure out like how they're going to launch and how quickly they're going to hit revenue and how quickly they're going to acquire customers and how much they're going to grow and who their key partners are, always, err on the side of caution. Like if you think you need 2 months, give yourself at least 4. If you think you're going to be hitting, 10,000 in revenue, does the business still work at 5,000 in revenue? If you think your costs are, $5,000 a month, if they're $10,000 a month, does it still make the business work? Like, as long as you're conservative with your numbers and don't hold yourself to an impossible standard, at least in the beginning, until you can figure it out, and then you can be harder on yourself once you figure it out. What was your biggest key partner that you think, like your biggest opportunity that really paid dividends?
I truly believe my first job, because that was the moment where I went, oh, it's working. Everyone who helped me along the way, it's great to have motivators. It's great to have mentors. It's great to have an idea. But until that idea comes to fruition, it didn't hit for me. Because I was talking with people, and I'm like, yeah, everyone says it's going to work, but I'm not seeing it. I'm a person who, like, I can read it. You can tell me it. Until it happens or I start doing it, I don't really believe it. And when I hit that first job, the aha moment in me was like, okay, now what everybody else said is clicking on 110%. Everything went full circle. That first sale was everything. Like I said, at the end of that phone call, I was in my living room jumping around for joy. I'm a grown man. I'm 240 pounds. I'm a big boy. My neighbors were probably like, what is going on? So yeah, that was the moment for me. But, also, just seeing other like-minded business people as well, David, in your group and Brian's group, it was just like, oh, there are other people doing it, and watching other people do it alongside me. I kind of got it quick. It kind of happened for me kind of fast, but watching other people as I'm building, watching them build, listening to them say certain things and going, oh, I need to look into that. Like I did my website with SEO, certain keywords that Google likes to look at. And I talked with someone about that and they helped me figure that, just little things. Keep talking to people who are building with you. The best person to take advice to is the person who's been in your position or who's in your position, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and little things every day. I mean, people don't realize that it just keeps compounding, and now it gets easier, right? Now you don't have to work 6 days a week because now you have
Yeah,
some repeat customers. Now you have some referrals. Somebody that you did work for. Now they're like, oh, by the way, somebody else needs work. Can you do it for them? And now
absolutely.
you're learning your price points more. Your margins are getting better. You know your worth. You know how you fit in the industry. So it just forget about fine tuning everything at the very beginning, get everything perfect in the beginning, and just start. Just get enough momentum to
Yeah.
get going. Then you can always fine tune it later.
I do want to tell people too. So for me, I guess I'm in a special case because I didn't have to go through a bank. I had a friend give me the money. So I wasn't really on a times table to pay money back. But I will tell you that I treated it as if, even though he told me, hey, don't worry about it. I treat every month. This is what happened this month. This is what I spent the money on. I treated him as if he was like an investor who was breathing down my neck. So in the future, if I ever need to do this again and work with somebody else, I'm already in the proper position. So, if you get a position like me where someone invests in you and they don't want their money back right away, still treat it as though, you don't know this person. Treat it as if, you don't know them at all. Make sure that you're still doing the proper thing because in the future, you never know. You might need to borrow $1 million from somebody. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that, I don't take for granted is that I kind of had it, smooth as far as the money goes. And luckily, like I said, I was able to pay my friend back all his money. So I paid him back all his money within a year. So things are good, but
That's
that's just
awesome.
something I wanted to bring up as well. So
That's awesome. All right, so I'm going to open it up. So Tim, if you want to unmute yourself too. So Tim, and
yeah,
introduce yourself too, so you guys know each other. And obviously, I know you guys, but
Yeah, hey Jordan. Thanks for coming online. I'm also from New Bedford. I grew up in the city. I'm in
okay,
Taunton right now, but I can't tell you how refreshing it is to listen to your success. This is just a great conversation. I love hearing about one, vets being successful, and two, kind of your struggles at first and then your success second, because I'm kind of in the struggle phase right now, going through all those no's. So listening to you get that mentorship from David and go through those no's is refreshing to hear, because that's currently where I'm at. So
yeah.
thanks for
Even now,
sharing
I
your
still get
story.
those. Yeah, even now, I still get no's. It's I still get just as many no's now as I did when I first started. Except like I was saying earlier, like David told me that thing, like don't go out looking for yeses, go out for no's. It changes your mindset. It just takes the weight off your shoulders. But I'm still there with you, brother. I'm still look. I'm still in the struggling phase now in my business. I'm a year in. I'm successful, and I'm not even where I really want to be. I've turned my proof of concept into reality, but I am still on that path. I'm still cracking down. I still go out. I still get my nose. I still get some yeses. I'm still fine tuning. Just perseverance, man. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. I think that's the key takeaway is, and I think David mentioned something about it too, is your next success is over that hardest, that next hurdle. And those hurdles as an entrepreneur, they seem to just stack and they're always there. It's always something. You're just continuously going and going and going. And that's been my guiding light, is just trying to just keep going. I'm pushing through every day when there's no feedback, there's no callbacks, there's no email returns, there's no replies. There's a lot of no's, and that can get sometimes you know get you on the path to maybe wanting to take a different route. But no, I just want to say thanks for sharing your story. It's great to hear vets like yourself succeed and still grinding it out post service. And yeah, just thanks for sharing your story, man. I love
I
to hear it.
appreciate it, brother. I hope something I said helps. I hope something, you know, I hope something
Absolutely.
helps, man.
Yeah, Tim,
Oh,
you want to explain what your business is?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a drone service provider. So
yeah.
um, people typically think of drones as taking photos and videos of commercial real estate sites, or you know, cool videos, first person view. But what I do is I work on construction sites, and what I do is I map out construction sites, and it's a little bit like being in the safety business, where we will map out consistent progress through a demolition or construction, depending on where the phase of the project is at. And when there's meetings every Monday or Tuesday, they have an updated imagery package where it's a map of a 40-acre site where somebody doesn't have to actually walk the entire site. I can have a map ready for their meeting, and then they can talk about where they're at in that meeting. And additionally, within that same map, I can measure volume. So whether they have stockpiles of debris, dirt, gravel, stone, whatever the case may be, if they're getting receipts from general contractors based off of what's on that load, and it's they're getting a bill for $20,000-$30,000 after the project, and they're like, wait a minute, what's this? I can go back and measure every single pile that's on that. So I'm in the help them increase their bottom line, increase their safety, and some time. If it's a surveyor that's out there and needs to walk the site, I can map the entire site in 10-15 minutes and get them a deliverable before lunch. So a lot of it is safety, time, and effort, and all that. And right now, I'm working a big project in Taunton, the Winton Mills project. It's redevelopment. It's Taunton's largest redevelopment project, and I'm doing it. I'm right on the cusp. I'm right on the cusp of partnering with the survey or engineering firm, and so this week, like tomorrow, I'm looking to put together a meeting with the engineering firm where I have a package of deliverables. So that's
Nice.
that's what we do. FAA certified, veteran owned,
Yep.
SDO certified, all that fun jazz. So that's where I'm at, and that's what we do.
I know one thing that I had a hard time with in the beginning was finding out who to talk to. Because even though, like I said, I did the business for so long, I remember like in the beginning, I was just talking to secretaries, and I was like, secretaries isn't really who I need to be talking to. I need to be
Right.
talking to like site supervisors and foremen and safety, So I'm sure you probably had that same thing where you're like, who do I talk to in the beginning?
100%.
So,
100%.
yeah.
The job site is, and I'm not in the construction business, right? I've
Yeah.
been in Intel and the Air Force for a number of years, and so yeah, who's the supervisor? Who's the project manager? Who's the lead engineer? Who's the person that's using the deliverable? Who's the person that's going to pay me? Like
Yep.
finding out who all those people are, and building those relationships. And that's really what I'm geared towards, is like building those relationships just based off of how can I support them? Not like what can you do for me, but more so how can I support them? And
Absolutely.
identifying those people and building those relationships is you're 100% accurate in identifying those folks.
Yeah, I'd be curious, Tim, like where your value proposition is, because just hearing you talk this time, you're talking about the stockpiles. I never even thought of that, but making sure they're not getting skimmed, by the materials company that's delivering it, so that that general contractor that has to keep that project on budget, like they want to make sure, one, they have enough materials to finish the job, and two, if they're paying for 20 yards of something, that they're actually getting 20 yards of something, right? And things like
Exactly.
that. So I'm curious as
Exactly.
to where your value add could be, to be like, these are things that I can help prevent or confirm, or keep on track. And because it's really like, where's their pain, like where's the thing that your service is like, I really can't live without this. Like that's a no-brainer. Like the insurance policy, having what you offer is a no-brainer to have for the cost, right? So I'm just curious to
Right.
see like where that fits into that site, like where that
Yeah.
construction site.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, Dave. So most general contractors can go out and do what I can do manually. They can get an engineer team of, depending on the size of the site, 3 to 5 guys, get out there and go do it. The problem with that is now you're back into the safety realm, right? If I got 3 to 5 guys on a job site climbing stockpiles out there amongst all the equipment, now we've got a safety issue, right? More people on job site just increases the chance of something happening. And then we're talking about time. So if you get those same 3 to 5 guys on that same site, it's going to take them a week, sometimes weeks, in order to calculate every stockpile, because they got to go up there and stand with that GPS module on every stockpile. They got to climb it, and so it takes time. And so what I give them, my value proposition is time. I give them the benefit of decision, that they can then go make decisions with the data faster, so they don't have to wait. So now they can X that decision off of their list of things they have to do and move on to the next thing that they need to do. So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of value that we can provide. Safety is definitely one of them. Time is another. But ultimately, what we're giving our customers is the ability to make decisions faster. It's the same thing on the battlefield, right? With a drone, you're going to raid a house. You want to know, is there a guy on the roof with a 50 cal? Where are the windows? Where are the doors? Is there a truck out front with a guy on it, a technical? So all that value that we provide is something that allows you to make a better decision before you get there.
Nice. So Jordan, do you have any advice for Tim there, as far as either like who to reach out to, or kind of like how to find their pain a little bit more?
I always said with construction, one of the best things I found is just going to sites with my equipment also changed things. So originally I was just going, with my college shirt, hat, looking professional. And I remember doing that for a while and thinking like, no, like I need to be like, have my equipment in my hand. I tell everybody now, like, hey, I'll go give you a free demo. Some people have taken me up on the free. Yeah, come show me what you can do. Can you do this spot? And I do it on the floor for them, make it look all nice. They're like, oh, so that's what it is. Even just going out with your equipment, being like, hey, I can go, I don't know, give you guys, a quick image of the side of, just to show you what it entails. Because a lot of the times these foremen, they're old school. They want to know, like, all right, what can you do for me right now? Show me. And I realized when I started showing people, like, oh, let me go and do a free demo for you. The first hour was free. It started picking up a lot more. People were like, oh, yeah, come inside, come show me. That kind of changed things.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah,
that's
because
smart.
people, it's hard, especially for me. I'm like, hey, I'm going to x-ray your ground. And they're like, I don't get it. Like, why? Like, for what? Like, what do I need? And then I show them, they go, oh, that's what you do. Oh, I get it now. When you start showing them, like, oh, this is where this rebar is. Hey, look, there's a conduit here. They're like, oh, okay. I see the value in this. And they might not have it today, but on their next job, they might be like, hey, I know a guy who can do this. So one thing I noticed is bringing your equipment to the site. If you can do like a quick, like, look, this is what I can show you. Let me show you my product as well as tell you about it. It helped a ton.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity, right? Because you might make a sale on the spot, but I think that demo thing, like, there's a reason why bartenders give out free samples in food places and Chinese places you walk through the mall, right? Like, you can't walk by without getting a dumpling shoved in your mouth, right? Like, there's a reason why you do it, because then you get like that instant gratification from there, and it's not just a piece of paper or some hypothetical, or maybe they're confused as to what it is. But yeah, I remember, completely different industry, but when I went out selling coffee, I would bring it in, here, sample the coffee right there on the spot, or I got it right here. You want me? I'll pour you one ready to go, free sample. And that was like, oh, that was really good. You know what? I'll get one for the whole office. So I think it's smart going out there with it in hand, because that way you show, one, you have the right equipment. You show how quickly you can set it up. You show the detail and the quality right there. You don't have to educate them on everything, through your website. Oh, check out my website. When are they going to do that? Like, maybe if they, finally get into the point where they're like, oh, I need your service. Who was that guy? It's more memorable too, right? They'll remember that.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's great advice. Thank you for sharing.
And if you're already out anyway, why not? Like, you're already spending the time making sales.
Right.
So cool. And you just made me think, like, one of my other veteran buddies out in Colorado, he bought a mobile home park, and he went through the due diligence and looking through financials, and that's what he does. He's a financial guy. But he didn't scan the ground to realize that they redid the plumbing and they only buried it down a couple inches. And the first frost split all the pipes and blew it open, and he had $20,000+ in water damage and trying to replace the pipes right there. And it's one of those things where maybe a service like this would have been worthwhile doing in the early stages.
Absolutely.
So cool. All right, guys. Well, this has been great. I do have a 10 o'clock I have to jump off on, but thank you, Jordan, for coming out and sharing all again with everybody here. And I mean, I think literally it's been like 13 months since you got on the platform, and then kind of started going from there. And you made a lot of progress in 13 months, and I'm happy for you, man. I really am.
Thank you. Anyone who watching this and needs the service, it's at veteranconcretescanningsolutions.com. Check out the email. It has my number on there, some photos of my work. If you know anybody who needs any concrete scanning, you can have them reach out to me on this platform or on my website. That's
awesome. Yeah, I'll drop your website right in the chat right now for everyone. And then when we'll post this again, so we have now like a new course where it's like recorded webinars. This will be posted in there as well, and I'll drop your contact information as a resource link there too for anybody here on school in the veteran business community. But yeah, this has been great. I appreciate it, Tim. Good seeing you here. Hal, thanks for showing up. How's the throat today? How you recovered, or did it get worse?
No, I'm much better today. So I'm going to be shooting that new onboarding video for everyone today. By the way, real quick, Jordan, great story. Really enjoyed it. I love the tenacity and the stick-to-itness that you have. It's absolutely the number one thing that entrepreneurs have to have. And that's why I think veterans specifically are very well cut out to be entrepreneurs, because we kind of learn that really early on in our military career. And as we go out through that, a lot of stuff to unpack. I know we don't have a lot of time to, but real quick, you mentioned about going for the no. So this is a book. I'm not sure if this is the one that David was talking about, but it's called Go for the No. And it's it talks about yes is the destination, but no is how you get there. So it's a really good thin book. It's read through as a story. I don't know if you've read this or not, but it's fantastic. There's also a workbook that goes with it. So highly recommend this to anybody as well. But what a great story, and really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, make sure, Hal, that we drop that in the resource files too when we drop this course in there.
Yep, we'll do. Jordan, great stuff, man. Keep going.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, I think you two should get together too, Tim and Jordan. I think you got some synergies here that you might be able to work together on or partner on.
Absolutely.
I'll reach out to you via DMs, Tim, because there's some places I think could use you. So
great. Sounds great.
All right, gents. All right. Good seeing everybody. Good Monday. Way to kick off the week.
So long.
All right. Take care.